Okay, ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Walsh, would you like to lead us in the flag salute, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All requirements of the Open Public Business Meetings Law have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting are posted in the Borough Hall, Oradell Public Library, OPS Main Office, and filed with the Record and Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mrs. Nguyen, can you please read the mission statement?
Yes. The Oradell Public School is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, and responsible citizens.
Thank you. At this point in the meeting, we will allow public comment on reorganization session items numbers 7 through 14 only. Please remember to state your full name and address each time you address the board, as well as sign in with this information. Will the first person wishing to be heard please step forward or raise your digital hand via Zoom? Anybody? Okay. All right, seeing none. Now on to the board secretary's report. So the board secretary report is on election results. On Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, the annual school board election for the Oradell Public School District was held. Voting was conducted for 4 seats to the Board of Education, 3 seats for a 3-year term, and 1 seat for an unexpired 2-year term. The results for the 3-year term election were as follows. Mr. Jeremy Griffin, 2,490 votes. Mrs. Pooja Bhatia Nigam, 2,099 votes. Mr. Robert J. Graham Jr., 1,785 votes. Mrs. Rita J. Walker, 2,304 votes. The results for the 2-year unexpired term election were as follows. Mrs. Nancy Shapiro, 2,360 votes. Mr. James Del Greco, 1,580 votes. The candidates elected were Mr. Jeremy Griffin, Mrs. Pooja Bhatia Nigam, and Mrs. Rita J. Walker to 3-year terms. The candidate elected for the 2-year unexpired term was Mrs. Nancy Shapiro. A copy of these results will be entered into the official minutes of this meeting. The elected candidates may now step to the microphone and they will be administered the oath of office. So we're going to do things a little bit differently now. So we're going to do 2 separate oaths, one for Pooja that's at home, and then after we do the oath with Pooja, we'll do with Rita and Nancy, who's in the audience tonight. Pooja, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Pooja, can you please recite the oath for us?
Raise your right hand.
Oh, please raise your right hand. I'm sorry. Please raise your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Pooja Bhatia Nigam, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people. So help me God. I, Pooja Bhatia Nigam, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of Member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 1941, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A 12:1, and that I faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Shapiro, please stand up and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Francis J. Walker,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and the states
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Rita J. Walker,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense
listed in NJS 18A 12-1,
listed in New Jersey as 18A 12-1.
and I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform all the duties
and justly perform all the duties
of that office according to the best of my ability.
of that office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. You can take your seat down here with the board. So also you have copies that have been pre-filled out, so before the night's over, I'll just need to collect those from you. Okay, now we can do the roll call. Mrs. Negum, I'm sorry.
Here.
Mr. Griffin? Mrs. Levy?
Here.
Mrs. Neumann?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Walsh? Here. Mr. Darian? Here. Mrs. Nichols?
Here.
At this time, I'd like to open up the nomination for President of the Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Watson Nichols.
I'll second.
That's, okay.
Sorry, John.
No, that's good.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, roll call. Mrs. Negum?
Here.
Yes or no?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen?
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols? Mhm. Okay, so Mrs. Nichols is nominated. She's now going to take over as president for the meeting.
Okay, open the floor to nominations for vice president. Mr. Walsh?
I move that we elect Greg Darian vice president.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any other nominations? Call the question?
Mrs. Needham?
Can I abstain? I'm not sure if I can or not.
You can abstain to anything you want.
Yes, abstain at this point, yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen?
I vote no.
Mrs. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
I abstain.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. We'll move on to the code of ethics. What we normally do is each board member will take one paragraph. There's 11, so I guess 3 people will have to go twice. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Walker to start. And we'll go Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Norian, Mr. Walsh, Greg, me. Pooja, you read the paragraph after me. Okay?
Got it, thank you.
And then you go after Mrs. Negum and then Mrs. Levy, and then we'll go till we continue. So Mrs. Walker, you want to start us out on the code of ethics?
Sure. I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
Okay, I was checking the agenda and it's not written the same.
Yeah.
I will make decisions in
It's on
terms
the
of the
agenda.
educational,
I think it's a little bit different.
Is it different?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
yeah, it's different.
bit, yeah.
Hold on a second.
Where are you guys looking?
Where are you
On the
guys
white
looking?
sheet or in the packet?
What do you,
I'm doing the white.
White.
oh, I'm looking at the
It says
agenda.
state board rules, and on here it says rules and regulations, so it's a little bit different on the
Oh,
agenda versus the white sheet.
but we're
And
looking
there
at
are
the
A's and B's and
page
there are
3.
A's and B's on the blue.
I think they're the same. They're just,
It should be the
Well,
same.
when you're reading the first one, it starts with, it is hereby
Yeah.
moved, and then it goes, I will uphold and
oh
enforce
no,
laws.
Rita just skipped the motion and she just went into
Right,
the,
right, but it says state board rules and regulations and court orders. Okay, I guess it does say the same. I thought it didn't.
okay,
I
yeah,
didn't
I
hear the
think
same
this
thing.
is the more official one.
right. So,
So-
yeah, you're on B then, I guess.
Okay, I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
I will confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well-run.
I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any private action which may compromise the board.
I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and, in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its school.
I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer.
I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties.
I will refer all complaints to the Chief School Administrative Officer and will act on such complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Mr. Dunn, would you make the motion for this item?
I make the motion that we approve the Code of Ethics.
I second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions or comments? Call the question.
Mrs. Negan,
Yes.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, we have items 7 through 14, I believe. Would anybody like to make a motion for a consent agenda on those?
So moved.
I second it.
Consent agenda by Mrs. Norian, seconded by Mr. Walsh. Any questions or comments on numbers 7 through 14? Call the question?
Mrs. Negan,
Abstain?
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker, Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. At this time, we'll move into our public work and business session. Roll call?
Mrs. Negan,
Here?
Mrs. Levy,
Here.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Here.
Mrs. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Walsh,
Here.
Mr. Darian,
Still here.
Mrs. Nichols,
Here.
and Mr. Griffin's still not here.
We are open to the public for agenda items only. Please raise your digital hand. Not seeing any, we'll move forward. We'll move right to the superintendent's report.
Nothing. I just would like to wish everyone a happy new year and a congratulations to the newly elected board members.
Moving forward to the business administrator's report.
No report tonight.
We'll move to minutes. We have a review of December 9th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Marmara. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of minutes for December 7th through, or November 9th through December 7th?
I move that we approve the meetings of November 9th, 10th, 11th, the 30th, December 3rd, and December 7th.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Negan,
Abstain?
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, moving to administrative items. Mr. Darian, would you take administrative, A1 and 2?
Yes, I'd like to introduce items A1 and A2.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
On A2, I'm not sure what the statement of assurance regarding the use of paraprofessionals.
That's a report that twice a year we have to submit to the state on using our paraprofessionals, how many we have, but it's a state mandate. We do it twice a year.
Okay, their role,
Yes.
what they, where they're designated to work and
Yes.
so on, and their hours.
Mhm.
Okay, and I also have a question for A1 also. what's the criteria we use to choose the affirmative action officers?
Well, it's generally an administrator,
Okay,
someone that's in an administrative position that can do the investigation if there's a,
right, right. Someone then that's probably not really involved or could be involved
yes.
in that incident. Right. Okay.
objective.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Needham,
Yes.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian?
Oh, yes, I have no report, nothing to introduce.
Curriculum, Mrs. Norian?
No real report, but please make a note of the minutes from our last meeting, which was just prior to our last meeting. And please read over them. We did go over what happened during the pandemic and how we addressed the curriculum issues there. Also, we noted that there are a number of curriculum that are ready for board approval. So hopefully we'll be seeing those on the agenda in the coming months.
Thank you. Finance, Mrs. Shapiro?
So Finance met last week on Zoom, and we met with the auditors who are still, I guess, John, we say they're working on
They're
it.
wrapping it up. now.
They're wrapping it up. So that's it as far as my report. This evening, I'd like to make a motion to approve items D1 through D9.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Needham,
Abstain.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh?
I have no report. We haven't had a meeting since the legislative meeting in December.
Okay. Personnel, Mrs. Walker?
Yes, thank you. I have really nothing to report except that before I present, I want to say sadly that I see that our wonderful art teacher, Tony Bocafuco is retiring, and she has been such a wonderful asset to this school. Her artwork, you walk down the hall, every child presents a beautiful piece of artwork. And the neatness and the organization of displays is just mind-boggling, how she can do that with 750 odd children. So we're going to be really missing her, and somebody's going to have big shoes to fit into to take her place. And with that, I'd like to present F1 and F2.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Call the question?
Mrs. Needham,
Abstain.
Mrs. Levy,
Yes.
Mrs. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Policy, Mrs. Levy.
Nothing to report at this time.
Public relations, Mr. Griffin isn't here. Mrs. Walker, has there been any meetings or anything? I don't think so, right?
No.
Not right now. Okay. At this time, we are open to the public. Just raise your digital hand. Okay, any old or new business from the board? Mrs. Levy?
Thank you. I want to publicly wish everybody a happy new year. Before the school went out, I just wanted to say that it was such a wonderful thing. I'm sure many of you know that tradition here at OPS is of the holiday sing-along. And the way that it was pulled off this year under the current circumstances was nothing short of extraordinary. I know that Mr. Butcher had to have put many hours into getting that together. And I just wanted to publicly thank him. I know that I heard from a lot of people in the community that, you know, to have something and for the children to have something that was semi-normal and a tradition that they got to carry on, including during this time, was really important to them. And so I just wanted, I actually wrote myself a note in my notebook after that so that I wouldn't forget to thank him. And it was really wonderful. And I believe, and Ms. Bozios, I could be incorrect, but is it still on the website? Yes, I thought I saw it recently. So if anybody missed it, I think you should check it out. It was great. And I also just wanted to thank the administrative team because they put on a production of their own, which I think might still be on the website as well. And I watched it side by side with one of my children. And again, it was giving them a little sense of some normalcy during this time. And as a board member and a parent, I was really appreciative. So thank you.
Mrs. Shapiro?
So I have two items. One is before we went on break, I received my copy of the Eye on OPS. And I also made myself a note so that I wouldn't forget for the meeting because it's now like ancient history. But I read it and I was just really impressed with how detailed and well done, well written and complete it was. And I thought to myself, if I didn't have a child going here yet, I would be really excited if I had a toddler or a preschooler, that this is the place that my child would go to school. And so I was just really proud that, you know, the strong tradition of the school continues, and I felt it was an excellent job communicating that to the community. I also made myself a note about what we used to call the sing-along, and how I was really grateful that I was able to watch, even at home, one of those like little silver linings of COVID. We try to find the joys. And I particularly enjoyed, of course, all of the songs, but the creative adaptation of The Giving Tree by the administrative staff. And it reminded me of in grad school, how we were taught to interpret and give students the opportunity to interpret something and recreate it and analyze it in different and creative ways. And they actually modeled that for us. I was so impressed, really appreciated it, and never thought I'd see the principal being wheeled out on a dolly, but it was awesome. And another part of it that was special is my 7th grader was home. We watched it together, and he sang along with some of the songs too, because this is what he did. Both of them did for many, many years, and it reminded me that OPS, no matter how big they get, it's still a home, you know, for all of our graduates, no matter how big they get. So that's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker?
I just have 2 quick items. I want to thank the people, the community of Oradell, for putting their faith and trust in me and placing me here for another 3 years. I promise to do my best for most certainly the children and all stakeholders in the community. Thank you. The other thing, I have a question. Where are we? I know Mr. Griffin was chair with the COVID task force that we had established.
So I think we're going to be meeting this month at some point. We haven't said it, I don't think we said it, was it?
We didn't send, I don't think we said it.
We were going to do it, I think, today, but we said it was too much. Maybe it might be the 20th, it might be the 20th, the day of our next board meeting.
Okay.
Nothing else has happened. Go ahead, Mr.
We've had 2 meetings since we created the task force.
So does it overlap? Because I see a very comprehensive COVID coverage by the administration, I guess, our school task force.
Our role is slightly different. We try not to overlap. Our role is like a board governance oversight board. And then we also provide direction, in terms of, where we would like to be, in terms of the curriculum or the school's schedule or just, a general direction.
Curriculum?
Not specific curriculum, but just, like as an example, the schedule comes up, the layout of the school, we talked about sectioning of the school, and that's currently being researched, pros and cons, things of that nature. But it's more of a high-level directional thing. Communications, are we communicating to the parent community, so on and so forth. That type of thing, without getting into the details that may be done at the administration or there's another COVID between the parent community and the school. We don't want to conflict with that.
Also, anything that's going to be, need to be looked at in detail from that will go down to the committee. So something like section of school did go to buildings and grounds. So if there's anything like with a curriculum issue, it'll go to curriculum. It's much more top of, but anything that has to do with any of the committees will go to the committee.
And I'm sure if there's, anything that's going to be implemented, it would probably go through the full board. So, but at this point, we haven't, other than just reviewing what's currently being done, we haven't suggested any changes yet.
Mrs. Mrs. Levy?
I just was curious, when we receive the reports of meeting minutes of the individual committees, we won't be receiving minutes from that meeting?
No, there were minutes. I thought Mr. Griffin had them last time. They are. Did they go out?
Yeah.
Did they go out in the last packet?
I didn't see them.
Yeah, that's, I think.
Just
kidding, we haven't seen anything.
Okay, we just had them emailed to the board. Let's email them. Mrs. Shapiro?
I have a follow-up kind of to what Rita was saying. Greg, all of that sounded great, but I think when we voted to form the committee, I don't know that we were actually I think when the motion was made, it was to discuss what the role of the committee would be. And I don't think that part of it, I appreciate you're not wanting to overlap, but I don't think that part of it was ever communicated to the board.
That might be in the minutes, I'm not sure.
What exactly the role, because some of the hesitation was, we didn't know what the scope of that particular committee would be. So I think we just need to.
During our first meeting, the first order of business was to determine the scope and the role of the committee.
Okay.
And that was in the minutes. So I'm sure once that's distributed, you'll see that in there.
Mrs. Norian?
Wasn't that also discussed at a meeting? I believe that there was a discussion that took place where Mr. Griffin did talk about us.
He gave an update
role.
at the last board meeting.
But I believe that that was one of the things that he said that we did, is went over the role.
We'll have to watch the videotape. Mrs. Needham, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi. Just again, from my perspective, just wanted to say and echo really Mrs. Walker's sentiments as well. A big thank you to all of Oradell for electing me here to the board. I'm very excited. Of course, this is my first meeting, and really just very thankful for the opportunity. And I promise I'll do my best. And also wanted to echo some of the other board members' sentiments around the holiday sing-along, because I really did enjoy that, and really, really appreciated the enactment of the giving tree. That was very beautifully done. So thank you to Ms. Bozios as well as Mr. Hagopian there, and Ms. Hawley.
Thank you. Any other old or new business? Are we good? Any motion to, anyone want to take a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right.